Hello, my little friends. Today I thought we'd do a fun story and STEM activity. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a three-part video for you. The first part is going to be us reading the story. The second part, I'm going to talk a little bit about the story. And the third part is going to be two really cool STEM activities that we're going to do. So before we get started with our story, I wanted to introduce you to a couple of new words. So we have here some new vocabulary words that you're going to need to know. The first one is troop. A troop is a group of gorillas that live together. So a lot of times we have different animal groups that live together, and like kittens, for example, we always call them a litter of kittens, right? So a troop is a group of gorillas that live together. And then we have the word adjust. When you adjust, that means you change to something. So sometimes we need to adjust our schedules. Like right now, we're adjusting our schoolwork because of the things that are going on. Then we have the word petition. Now, a petition is a little tricky to understand, but sometimes when grown-ups want to get something done, and sometimes even children, you have to have a paper signed by several people, and that tells the person they're trying to give it to that it's really important and they want something done. They want something changed. And then last is the word shimmer. And to shimmer means to shine within the light. So sometimes you have something that just glows a little bit in the light. So that's what shimmer is. So we're going to read a fabulous true story. It's a true story called Ivan, the Remarkable True Story of the Shopping Mall Gorilla by Katherine Applegate and illustrated by G. Brian Karras. Now, I want you to remember, this is a true story. It's crazy that this is a true story, but this is a true story, so I want you to listen closely, and then we're going to have some conversations about it. Here we go. In the leafy calm, in gentle arms, a gorilla's life began. The baby was born in a tropical forest in Central Africa. He was part of a large family of western lowland gorillas. The troop included babies, juveniles, females, and a male leader, the silverback. The more the baby gorillas grew, the more he played. The more he played, the more he learned. He rode on his mother's back. He listened to the hoots and grunts and chest beats of his father. He watched the older gorillas, clever and quick, as they wrestled and chased and swung from vines. He did not learn about humans until it was too late. Poachers with loud guns and cruel hands stole the little gorilla and another baby. A poacher is somebody who takes animals when they're not supposed to. After thousands of miles and endless days in a black, damp crate, at last came light and fresh air. I want you to take a look at this picture and look at their faces. They're really scared. You can tell. The jungle, green with life, was gone. The gorillas had traveled halfway around the world to Tacoma, Washington. A man who owned a shopping mall had ordered and paid for them, like a couple of pizzas, like a pair of shoes. We don't order animals like that, do we? Kind of crazy. People cooed and laughed and held the babies. They dressed them in human clothes and fed them human food. The shopping mall owner ran a Name the Babies contest. The winning names were Burma and Ivan. One dark day, soon after the babies arrived in their strange new world, Burma died. Without her, Ivan was all alone, with too much left to learn. While he was little, Ivan was cute and cuddly. For 3 years, he lived in a home like a human child. He slept in a bed and went to baseball games. He held babies and rode on a motorcycle. He had to learn many things gorillas in the wild don't ever need to know. The one thing Ivan didn't need to learn was how to eat. The more he ate, the more he grew. The more he grew, the less he could live a human life in a human house. Why do you think that is? Why is it that when he gets bigger, he can't live in a house or live a human life? Why do you think? A cage in the mall became Ivan's new home. There wasn't much to do. Sometimes Ivan watched TV. Sometimes he played with an old tire. Sometimes he finger painted, signing the papers with his thumbprint. Mostly, he watched humans watching him. Does that sound like fun for him? Ivan was about 13 when his coat began to shimmer. When his coat began to shimmer with silvery white hairs, he'd grown into a silverback gorilla. In the jungle, he would have been ready to protect his family, but he had no family to protect. Year after year passed. People began to grow angry about Ivan's lonely life. Children and adults wrote letters and signed petitions and held protests. They were fighting for him. Ivan lived in his cage without the company of other gorillas for 27 years before he was sent on another journey. This time the hands were gentle. Zoo Atlanta wasn't a jungle. It was a place with walls. Still, the breeze carried jungle sounds and scents. Scientists who understood the needs of gorillas helped Ivan adjust slowly, carefully, gently to his new life. Finally, it was time. Was Ivan ready? Cameras clicked, reporters watched. When Ivan stepped onto the cool green grass, the sunlight gleaming on his silver hair, people cheered and laughed and wept with joy. Ivan, the shopping mall gorilla, was in a place with trees and grass and other gorillas at last. In leafy calm, in gentle arms, a gorilla's life began again. And I want to show you a picture. This is the real Ivan. There's a picture of him there. And then on the back, I want to show you, this is him as well. So again, this is a true story, and our emotions go up and down. You know, we're happy, there's this great gorilla, and it's in his natural habitat, and then all of a sudden he gets taken and put into this mall. Gorillas aren't meant to be in malls, and you just feel bad for him. And then all of a sudden somebody fights for him, and then you're like, yes, somebody's fighting for him, and you feel happy again. And what a beautiful ending to this true story. So hang on, we're going to do some more talking about the story. What we're going to do now is we're going to do some comparing and contrasting. That means we're going to look at how some things are the same and some things were different. And we're particularly going to look at two habitats that Ivan lived in. The first being the one in the mall. The second one being the Zoo Atlanta. So both habitats are very different. I thought we'd start there and take a look at how they contrast with each other. So if we take a look, we have everything on this side has to do with the circus store that was in the mall. Over here is Zoo Atlanta. So let's take a look. And what I tried to do is, if I put something here, I had to put the opposite over here. So let's take a look. We know that the circus store, which was in the mall, is a human environment. We know that it's someplace that humans would do very well in, but not so much a gorilla. So if we take a look here, the zoo, they created a more natural environment for him. It wasn't something that was where he was born, but it was a place that he could call his home and be comfortable in. And we know that the mall is indoors and the zoo is outdoors. He lived alone at the store, but here he lived with a gorilla family. There were other gorillas there for him to relate to. He wasn't all by himself. And when he was by himself, he was lonely and sad. But here, he's happy and active. Do you know what active means? Active means he gets up and he moves around and he does some fun things. He's not just sitting around watching television doing nothing, okay? And here in the mall, he ate human food where he ate gorilla food at the zoo. So which do you think would be a better habitat for him? Obviously, the Zoo Atlanta, right? Now, I have a question for you. If you see this big blank spot in the middle, that is for both. So here's my question for you, and I think it's a fairly hard question. How were both habitats alike? How were they alike? I would love to hear your responses. You'll have to let me know what you think of how they were alike, and then we'll come back to really cool things for you to do. It's kind of like research, and then you get to build, so I'm really excited about it. So I want you to think about animals in captivity, okay? And you probably are like, what is captivity? Well, let me introduce you to a couple of different words here, okay? So we have the word captivity here, a state of being held, imprisoned, or confined. Now, I want you to think about it. If an animal is in a zoo, are they confined? Somewhat, right? They're confined. What about in the shopping mall? Very confined. What about in the jungle where they would naturally live? They're not confined there. So I want you to think about the different places that we have animals in captivity, okay? And then we have the habitat, which is the natural home of an animal. So the jungle would have been Ivan's natural habitat. How about a sanctuary? A sanctuary is a natural place of refuge or safety for animals. And it's actually a sanctuary is usually built by humans, but it's a very open area and it's not really enclosed all that much. I mean, it has to be at some point enclosed, but it's really wide open for them to roam and do their thing. And endangered, an animal species that is seriously at risk of extinction. That means of no longer being around. So these are 4 important words that we need to think about when we think about animals in captivity. So I have a question for you. Do you think that we should keep animals in captivity in zoos or someplace like amusement parks? What do you think? I want you to have a conversation at home and think about what would be the best place for them, okay? Now, what I'm gonna do is this. I have something really cool here, and it says, let's explore animals in captivity. These are those QR codes that we used a lot at school. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually take a picture of them and I'm going to put them up on the screen to have you scan them. So you can scan them with your parents' phone, or if you have a tablet, you can scan them. And what's gonna come up is a connection to different places. So this one here is Ivan in the shopping mall. This one here is Ivan at Zoo Atlanta. This one here is the Wild Animal Sanctuary. And this is a video on endangered animals. So it's a really cool way to do some research and find out more about Ivan and about different animals that live in different captivities. Okay, so that's the first part. So you can do that, and it's again really cool to be able just to scan something and be able to connect you to some information. Okay, so the next part is I want you to create a habitat for Ivan. Okay, so what I want you to think about it having is a couple of different things. Number 1, I want you to have a moat. A moat is just a water area. So he's got to have some kind of water someplace, right? So what kind of water area would you create for him? And then I want you to have a feeding area for him and a nest, which is where he would sleep, trees and plants, and then, of course, rocks and shaded areas. Because think about it. Do they want to be out in the sun all the time? No. Would you want to be out in the sun all the time? No. It gets hot and you get tired. And, of course, you get thirsty and you need water. So I want you to think about what you would put in your habitat for him. And I want you to add something special over here. So you can draw this on your own. And what you want to do is think of what else would you put in his habitat? Something maybe fun, something practical that maybe he needs. So think about what other things that you could add to it. Now, here is just like a diagram. Again, you can use just a plain piece of paper and you can draw it yourself. Or if you have Legos at home, you can build it out of Legos. You can make different areas, you can make different colors using your Legos. Also, you can use blocks. You can use really anything you want to come up with his habitat. So I want you to take some pictures of the habitats you come up with and send them to me. I would be so excited to see what you come up with and so many different ideas. And don't forget, think about how the different habitats are the same, because it's hard to think of how they were the same. There may be one or two ways they were, but it was a little more difficult. So that's a difficult question for you. I can't wait to hear your responses, and I hope you enjoyed this true story.